Have you ever wondered how some GeoGuessr players can find the exact 5K of certain locations even if there isn't any information?
Now we are on Iceland.
With multipliers and a lot of coastline here, a lot of distance that can decide things.
Long roads, which Iceland has all of 3 of them.
Yeah.
You try to line up the road and the mountains and the body of water to find on the map where you are.
Let's see if they've done it correctly. Amani first one to lock in, Foul soon to follow. 1 second left to work with out on the tippity top on the northern side of Iceland, and it's gonna be Amani on point, 11 meters off 5K skills.
Well, we all have. After seeing some of our favorite pro players like Blinky and RC pinpoint a location with supposedly zero information, all of us have wondered, how is this even possible? A lot of the time, they may just know the road, honestly. But most of the time, this is possible due to the sheer amount of practice that they've done with pinpointing locations. These players can see clues in the round that the average player glazes over without thinking. I'm Jira, or Giraffe, whatever you want to call me, and me and my friends have noticed a lack of a proper tutorial explaining some of the strategies and clues used to pinpoint locations such as these. So we're going to do our best to try and help you guys learn how to utilize these clues and strategies to be able to pinpoint similar locations in your games. But first, we need to go over a few things. First, we have to know, what is pinpointing? Pinpointing in GeoGuessr is basically finding the exact location of where you are in the round. Simple, right? Well, you'd think, but in reality, much like all the other aspects of GeoGuessr, pinpointing is truly an impossible skill to master. But that does not mean that you can't become incredibly consistent at it. Pinpointing skills are one of the hardest things to learn and get used to in GeoGuessr. Unlike metas and region guessing, pinpointing skills don't have a very good resource to learn from. It's more of a thing that you build over time. So me and my friends decided to work on this video to hopefully give new players a better resource for learning how to pinpoint properly. As well, we have to go over why pinpointing is useful. Pinpointing is mainly useful in the moving game mode, as this is the mode that is more based around moving to and locating scannable info such as town names or highway numbers to get as close to the location as possible. But this also does not mean that pinpointing is useless in the other modes No Move and NMPZ, as these are the modes that we will mainly be focusing on today. Pinpointing in these modes is often seen as more impressive and requires a lot more strategizing when it comes to hints that you wouldn't expect to be able to lead you to the exact 5K. There are many strategies to pinpoint locations in these modes, even with the lack of findable town names or highway numbers. So, with the general idea laid out, let's hop straight into the tutorial. There are 3 settings of compass in GeoGuessr. There's Modern, Classic, and you can also choose to use both. It doesn't really matter which one you use, it's entirely personal preference, and they both do the exact same thing. The Modern compass shows you which way you're facing using the abbreviations of each cardinal direction, while the Classic compass is based off of what it would look like if you were using a real compass, with red pointing north and white pointing south. I'm going to be leaving it on both for the rest of this video so that you guys can feel free to look at whichever compass you guys prefer to use. There's also the types of map. I prefer using the raster map as it's less laggy. Change these settings in the bottom left of your game when in a single or multiplayer game, or you could change them from the drop down at the top right of the home screen. The compass is by far the most useful tool when pinpointing. If you press N on your keyboard, it will face you straight north, and if you press N again, it will face you down. This is how you are able to see the angle of the road you're on. Using this road angle, you can locate roads on the in-game map that line up with the road that you are on. You can also use turns in the road to help your guess. If we are on a road that goes completely north-south, and we have a right turn to our north, we can look on the map to find the same turn and line up the exact 5K. This leads straight into our second chapter. By far, the most underrated clue to use while pinpointing on No Move or NMPZ is the landscape. Oftentimes, players forget that terrain features such as mountains, lakes, rivers, volcanoes, valleys, buildings, or literally anything else around the location will most likely show up on the map, even if there isn't a sign that explicitly says so. If you take a look at your default GeoGuessr map, you can obviously see features such as rivers, roads, lakes, and buildings. You can also see that the color of the map often corresponds to the sort of perceived color of the area. So more arid areas, such as deserts, will appear more yellow or sand colored on the map. Plains will be more light green, forests dark green, and snowy areas such as mountaintops or Antarctica will show up white. Often harder to see, but still visible, are terrain features such as mountains and valleys. These are scannable on this map, but often require more knowledge to judge the elevation or design of mountains found in each unique part of the world. If you want to practice using the terrain, you can utilize the Tampermonkey user script GeoGuessr training mode made by Zigzag and Miracle Whips, or you can play using the terrain map in party mode. I'd suggest running a few games of this to get used to the terrain of countries around the world, as even a little bit of terrain knowledge will go a very long way. Although this user script is very useful, it is very important to mention that it is not allowed to use this script in ranked play, tournaments, or any world records, as that would invalidate your run or get you banned from multiplayer for cheating. In some lesser fortunate countries such as India, the mapping for roads and buildings on the map is not nearly as high quality as some richer countries such as those in Europe or the United States. When this is the case, it can often be hard, if not impossible, to find the exact location. This also goes for countries such as Mongolia, where sometimes the Google car driver drives completely off-road, which will cause these roads to not show up at all on the map. These terrain features aren't only useful for region guessing though. They're often our biggest clue when trying to pinpoint around without moving, but I'll let someone who's a whole lot better than me show you how to do that.
Yo, hello guys, it's GG80 here, everybody's favorite compass merchant, and in this segment I'm going to be talking about a bit of the information and topics that were already discussed in this video and showing how I logically go through all them and use them to make a no-move pinpoint. We do so using this GeoGuessr challenge here, which should be linked down below. I'm going to play, two or three, probably two of the locations, talk about how I use my thought process in each location, and how logically I'm going to make a region guess, scan, and then find the pinpoint for the 5K. All right, let's go. Okay. So here we go. Load into the first location, and the first thing I want to determine is probably going to be the country. So I zoom in on this sign, and I see some Hebrew. We see yellow plates. We have Gen 4. We have a little bit of front blur, which I think is on every panel of Gen 4 in Israel. Any nerds rise up, let me know. But yeah, this should be a pretty obvious Israel for most players. And even if it's not, you can use a few of these clues to sort of determine the country after a little bit of time. Then the next step is to say, okay, this location is distinct. I can immediately tell that this location is going to be pinpointable, no move, because of this body of water to the east here, followed by this pretty long ridge of mountains, as well as this pretty built-up town that sort of goes up onto the hills into the mountains here. Even if you don't have a great region guess within Israel to begin with, you can easily narrow down this location into probably 2 or 3 different spots and then start scanning those spots to check which one is the correct one. So notice that north is this direction. Look at the road angle here. We sort of take into the fact of where everything is off to the east, southeast, north here, and then start scanning. So even if you start scanning up here, you can quickly narrow things down. This is a body of water, but we can see that there is no sharp ridge alongside. There's mountains here, but these mountains are going to look a lot different than these mountains do on the map, and I'll show you that later. And we can see that there is probably more sort of useful is the fact that there is no big town built up into the hills on this side, so we can sort of discard the Sea of Galilee here. And even if you go south and you want to scan the Dead Sea next, you go here. Okay, well, first of all, something that's going to be really helpful is the fact that there is no road directly on the water here. So this kind of can't be here because of that reason. Additionally, there is a ridge here. So maybe this looks more like that ridge would. Maybe this ridge looks like maybe this would on the map. But again, this town here, this town is definitely not going to be big enough, long enough, at least in the north-south direction, to be this. As you can see, it doesn't really exist here, directly east of the location. We can sort of narrow it down. There's only one more spot that we can possibly scan, and that is going to be this gulf here, Gulf Aqaba. And we note that, okay, first, check. Yes, there is a road directly on the ocean here. So we can see the proximity here. This makes a lot of sense for this to be here. Additionally, you have the town of Aqaba in Jordan here. And we can clearly see that in this location, and it's clearly here on the map. And here, yes, this is exactly what we're looking for. This ridge here, this long sort of north-south ridge, and you can see how much more prominent it is on the map. And this is one of the more difficult things about no move 5K'ing, is like learning how terrain looks like on the map. A lot of times the, base map that Google and GeoGuessr ends up using is kind of bad, but you're going to end up learning how a lot of these like terrain features look if you play a little bit. And this makes a lot of sense to be here, and none of the other places in Israel. And we use the angle to sort of make this 5K. The longest stretch of road that has this angle is going to be this. Maybe this could also make sense, but there is a beach mapped here, and you do not see a beach here. Instead, there's just a fence, so no beach there. Which makes this make a lot of sense. We're going to go ahead and guess there. And I mean, even if you're not getting the exact pinpoint, the exact 5K, this is going to be just fine. And you're 106 meters away. Sure, that's fine. You make a really good guess, and compared to an opponent who maybe isn't able to do something like that, you're going to be a lot closer. So the next location here. Okay, this is one of my favorite locations to kind of talk about. So immediately we notice that the country is South Africa. We have the ladder lines, these white inner lines. We have the blue car with the antenna driving left. All good signs for South Africa, including the sun directly north, southern hemisphere. So South Africa. Now, the next step is, I think for most players, and most players can probably do this, is to make a region guess. With this flat ridge here, this flat kind of tabletop mountain here, as well as how green it is compared to, I think, the area north and west of, or north and east of Pretoria, Johannesburg, is going to be a lot drier, a lot redder than this would be. So the region guess is going to be probably around the Cape Town area, and most players are probably okay with just clicking here and getting the 4.5, 4.6K that you would get from this location. But what I'm going to tell you is that this is actually a free 5K. All you have to do is press the N button. Press the N button once, you notice that this is actually a north-south road with this north-south ridge alongside the road that continues for a pretty long way and then curves off to the north and west, pretty far north of the location. And then that we have a kind of tabletop mountain ridge off to the northwest of the location. And in between that is this pretty flat valley. And another point that is really important to make is that the north-south ridge to our east is way closer than this tabletop mountain off here to the northwest. Then you go into the map and you say, okay, say we know this is Western Cape based off of our region guess, which is a pretty good assumption. Now we know that we're looking for a north-south ridge. You zoom into the map here, and what do you notice? There's an east-west ridge, east-west ridge, east-west ridge, east-west ridge, east-west ridge, nothing ridge. Now you zoom into this area, and what do you see? A north-south ridge. This is pretty much the only area that makes sense within your region guess that has a north-south ridge. So you can say, oh my gosh, I'm going to zoom in here, and it's probably going to be in this valley. I mean, especially considering you have this tabletop ridge off here to the northwest. And that makes a lot of sense. So now that you've narrowed down to probably the correct valley, how are you going to pinpoint this? Some players would zoom in, they'd start scanning here. Oh, there's a north-south part here. There's a north-south part here. But these don't make sense for a couple of reasons. First of all, this would never make sense because the ridge that is closer is to our east, not to our west. So I would recommend scanning on this side of the valley first. And you maybe look at this part here. You look how it goes north and then curves off to the west here to the north. You can see the road there. And you think to yourself, okay, maybe this makes sense. There's an intersection that goes off to the east here. To our south, maybe it could be here. However, you have to be super logical about this kind of stuff to make sure you get the 5K. You look off to directly to our west using the compass here. And you see that this part here is actually completely flat. Whereas if the location were here and we looked directly to our west, you would actually see this ridge here. So the location kind of can't be on this part. And then you zoom into the only other stretch of road that makes sense, and it's this north-south stretch of road here. And you can see the proximity to the ridge there. The ridge curves off to the north and west here, and we can see this tabletop ridge off to the northwest. So this makes perfect sense, and we can even confirm with the name here. We zoom into our intersection here, and there you have it. That is how to 5K a location like this. So yeah, you guys are free to play the rest of the locations by yourselves. I want you guys to use logic similar to how I did and see if you can 5K the rest. And I mean, just being able to properly think through rounds like this and sort of compass motion, as I said, it's won me like an uncountable number of games, and it's kind of one of the main reasons that I'm as high rated as I am in GeoGuessr, and it's also incredibly satisfying. So I really encourage you guys to sort of practice and learn this.
Some no-move or NMPZ rounds can still include information such as road numbers or town names. It's important for you to prioritize these pieces of information to optimize your pinpointing time. Learning how to scan for these information pieces is much more useful in the moving game mode, but learning some of it can still be very useful for no-move and NMPZ as well. Most countries that have a numbered highway system will have it organized in some way, a good example being Norway, where the highway numbers are organized with the higher numbers being further towards the north of the country. This is just an example of one of the many useful pieces of information that could be included in your round. If you'd like to learn more about using information like this, I'd suggest looking into tutorials or resources for the moving game mode rather than no move or NMPC. When it comes to no move and no move panning or zooming, you often hear the word region guessing a whole lot more than pinpointing. Despite this being a pinpointing tutorial, region guessing still is very important. You want to make sure that you prioritize the right clues in the round. Oftentimes, if you have a piece of information, you'll fixate onto that piece of information and ignore crucial clues in the round that may point you to a better region guess, which, in turn, will allow you to be able to scan for the pinpoint more efficiently. It's very important for you to develop a region guess before opening the map and beginning to scan for the pinpoint to ensure that you don't scan the wrong area. And now I will be handing it over to my good friend Gawynn for another demonstration.
Hello, I'm Gawynn, whatever you want to call me, that's fine. And today I'm going to be showing you guys how to essentially look and use information, utilizing them as part of your region guess to narrow it down to specific regions, and then pinpointing as well, and then also prioritizing, knowing how to prioritize different types of information over things that may be misleading, so knowing how to use that as well. I'm going to go over that as well. Alright, so we load into the first round here, and the first thing I notice is that, obviously, most advanced players are going to know this is Australia immediately. We've got the bollards here, we've got white car, and obviously if you can see the sun, it's not really too helpful here, but the sun should be north if this wasn't so overcast. And obviously we've got tons of eucalyptus everywhere, very indicative of Australia, and we've also got a Stobie pole over there, which is that kind of Oreo looking pole, which is exclusive to South Australia and some parts of Queensland, I think. So yeah, we should be in South Australia here with that pole, and first thing we notice is that we have a ridge here to the southwest, and like Randy said, you can use that to pinpoint, and you don't really even need info here, but we do have a sign here that says Hawker Racing Club, and that is a common thing. It says Hawker there too. It also says Hawker there. It says Hawker on practically all the signs. So very, very quickly, we're already going to know that we are in some place called Hawker, probably. And it's very likely going to be in South Australia with a ridge to the southwest. So I'm going to double N here. I'm going to zoom into South Australia. And very quickly, we're going to find the Hawker is right here. And again, just making sure with that ridge there to the southwest, and that makes sense, we do have that there. Should probably just be on the yellow road here because we have the entrance. And we also notice that here we have that street here that comes down, and then it stops, it ends, and we have this empty space and then a road that goes off to our east there. So that would make sense with this, and we also have this road that goes off to the east. So in terms of the pinpoint, it should just be here. Makes sense. We have the curve to the west as well, which happens there. And The next location that we have here is an example of making sure that you prioritize, making sure you know where the region is, essentially, before you kind of use the information and go max zoom into trying to find the settlement, the exact town, perhaps. So yeah, it's making sure you don't get tripped up by this type of misleading information. So we notice that we have a sign here right in front of us that says Municipal de Santa Maria, and we know that's going to be Brazil because we have Brazilian poles, waffle poles. We've got red tiled roofs, all very common in Brazil, right? So when we see this sign here that says Santa Maria, if you happen to know it, there is a very large city in the south of Brazil here called Santa Maria. It's by far the largest city in Brazil that is called Santa Maria. But as we see here, there is nothing that would really point us towards the max south region of Brazil. In fact, we kind of have every meta possible here for the north of Brazil. As we can see, we've got northeast pavement, cobble pavement, very common in the north. We've got lots of coconut palms, indicating that it might even be coastal. We've got a random cacti here, which you wouldn't really see in the south. And just overall, the general vibes, it feels quite sandy. Nothing really points us towards RGDS here, Rio Grande do Sul, and would probably just really quickly eliminate this Santa Maria. So even if you do have a city here that is called Santa Maria, that is probably the biggest one, not necessarily going to be the only one in that country. So making sure that you prioritize all the information that you have at your disposal, instead of just tunnel visioning on a single piece of information. And obviously this happens in all different sorts of countries all around the world. There are multiple Atlantas in the United States, multiple, I don't know, probably multiple like San Fernandos in Spain and whatnot, right? So just making sure that you look at everything here. Again, as I mentioned, we have northeast everything here in Brazil, so very likely I'm going to go in the northeast part of Brazil here. And as we mentioned, again, we also have coconut palms. It's probably going to be coastal somewhere, or at least somewhere far northeastern, so I'm just going to send it off. And that's a good guess. It is indeed Santa Maria in Rio Grande do Norte, rather than Rio Grande do Sul. I'm going to leave the rest of the 4 locations for you guys to play, and that's it from me. Bye-bye.
Now that you've learned more about how to pinpoint in GeoGuessr, I'd suggest doing some practice. For complete beginners, there's maps like a pinpointable world that you can use to practice finding grounds with information. For more advanced players, you can try getting some 5k scores on normal maps such as Community World or even Arbitrary Rural World. As well, me and my friends have compiled a few challenges for you guys to try out in the description if you want to test your skills. There will be challenges for players of all skill levels, so no matter how good you think you are at the game, there will be something for you to try. Have fun farming some question marks in the ranked queue. Thank you all for watching my video. I'd like to give credit to the many people who helped me with this project, including, but not limited to, GG80 and Gawynn for their respective parts, Endoline for help with the idea, Dewey for help with the script, and GG80, Endoline, and Hoppyface for their challenges that will be in the description. Links to all their stuff will also be in the description, along with all of the tools and challenges mentioned in the video. Links to some helpful resources will also be left in the description for anyone looking to improve further. If you think we missed anything or would like to see more, please leave a comment. Also, please subscribe, this took me so long to make. Good luck on your pinpointing!